Morning, my people. Let us begin. Today's video is selfishness, question mark. Working hard for your own sake is not the same as for yourself. Funny enough here, I wrote different and then I scratched it. There's there's something that kind of like differentiates the two, right? Like not the same, different. They're kind of this. They're not really different. Your sake and yourself. Even though self is separate from you, well, that's the differentiation. I guess I explained it to myself. The word yourself is a needy, phrase. Okay, when I first started on my mind was like, yes, like, work for yourself, much better. And then now I'm looking at it and I was like, what did I fucking mean? The word for yourself is a needy phrase. I always, I made a couple of videos before about the difference between selfishness and unselflessness. Because I think the neutrality is, or I forgot the word, but you being selfish is very directed towards the things that you kind of like. You're opinionated about. It kind of takes away. It kind of takes attention from the world that you're looking at. It takes attention from the reality you're trying to create. And I feel attention is kind of that game that you play because if you're sure of something, then you can't give attention. So the more your ego is involved, the less energy is able to be emitted towards the thing that kind of like the ego is holding on to. And again, there's no maliciousness. It's just how do we do this shit? So the difference between you being selfish and the other side, which is basically like, one second, I'm gonna look for it now. All right, guys, I'm back. I went through 4 or 5 old books to remember what I was talking about. But I think it was the difference between being selfless and being unselfish in your approach. Because most of the time when we're thinking about others, we're actually being very accountable. We're thinking about what we want out of this delivery method. But anyways, uh, working hard for your own sake is not the same as working hard for yourself. And I feel like we mislabel the self. What we do is we kind of like highlight, we, we become needy in what we want instead of consider what it's contributing to. And hear me out, it's the difference between yourself and your sake, right? What is myself? What is my own sake? Well, for my own sake, kind of leads a result for later. For myself, kind of leads a result for now. And so myself and me right now are kind of mixed. I know they're separate, but they're kind of mixed together. So it is not selfish when you do something for the sake of you. But if you're doing something for yourself, I feel it can be selfish. And hear me out. In the mix of things, the self lays neutral between you. Well, let's say you and your body or your ego. Is that the me? My body, my ego is me. I am what you would point at as you, right? Am I talking to you or am I talking to you X name or something? So even though self is separate from you, the word yourself is an easy phrase. Because you don't really do something for yourself. To do something for yourself is probably more to pick something that you shouldn't do. Right? You don't contribute to the self by doing something. You contribute to the self by not doing something you shouldn't do. Our bigger issues as human beings is not the fact that we don't know what we do and we need to do, is that we do what we shouldn't have done. I think our biggest issue is we do stuff that we're not aligned with. We do stuff that we don't agree with. We do stuff that doesn't really click with who we are. And that kind of like adds a burden because the self kind of like, if it's something that aligns with you, it's just, it consumes it, dissolves it, and like gives it back to the world. It allows you to deliver something more powerful, stronger. But if it's something that doesn't align, it's the difference between putting water instead of gas in a car. Like yes, anytime you put gas, the car will kind of like come on or move, but it'll have like all these kind of like issues because the engine is like, no, something's coming in the way as I move forward. So I feel selfishness is when you're working hard for yourself because for some reason the part that's being fixed that needs kind of like needs to be handled in your own kind of like self. What you're doing is you're trying to work on the symptoms, which basically is what happens on the outside as a result of the misharmony, misalignment. When that happens, when that happens, ultimately, like, from the beginning, we were kind of like misdirected by thinking like doing something for myself supports it. And so it's one of those like a drunkard basically drinks to not feel bad, but the truth is the reason he feels bad is because he keeps drinking, right? And there's a beautiful poem around it called "Dawiha التي كانت لي الداء." It's in Arabic. And it's like, don't judge me for being a drunkard, just give me more alcohol. But the idea is selfishness is approaching. Selfishness is basically is doing something for yourself, is doing something with an expected result. And all of these come from a certain lack or a certain friction that you have from within yourself. That's selfishness. But unselflessness, which is basically doing something, not not by being selfless, but by being intention about why you're doing it, intention about why you're doing it, means you're doing it for your own sake. What you're doing is you're prepping, you're creating a standard, you're building around your environment that contributes to who you are. Because who you are is basically what ends up absorbing the information, ideas, whatever is happening around the environment, absorbing, consuming. But ultimately, it's the last thing I want is to kind of like create a wall around me in order to protect myself, right? The last thing I would want to do that. But the best I could do is create like a filtration system. So as whatever's coming out, then I'm able to recognize what's going on and I'm able to deal with it accordingly. So the self is separate from you, but yourself is needy. And it's the same as that kind of like neediness for another drink after you wake up hungover. And it's our fault. Because at one point, what we ended up doing is we did something that we shouldn't have. So again, the self is, you don't have to do anything for it as long as you don't do anything against it. Because anything you do that harmonizes with the self is dissolved instantly with it. If it's something that harmonizes with your values, with your principles, with it, which is kind of what does it. All of these basically are resolved instantly, and not you forget about them, but you're in a state of flow. You're in a state of like, I'm doing something, I'm moving forward, I'm cultivating, growing, whatever that is. That is a state of self. Anything we do for the sake of our own self only comes out when the self is not doing great. And when that happens, the worst thing we can do is do something for it. We have to do something for our own sake. Because as we do something for our own sake, we expose the thing that's kind of like standing in the way between the self and the world, us and the self. Because then you're kind of like, you're being kind to yourself. You're doing something, right? Like you're actually like engaging with, instead of like, here's a present versus I'm sitting here to hang out with you. Why the fuck not, man? Beautiful start of the day. Okay, guys. Fucking love you. So, doesn't need shit. Just don't be an answer. It's a video.